The wind outside howled like an animal in pain, clawing at the reinforced panels of the prefab shelter until the walls shuddered. On nights like this, it always felt like the outpost itself might peel off the frozen ground and vanish into the storm. 12-year-old Cale Renner rolled over in his bunk, dragging the thermal blanket tighter around his shoulders. The settlers had named this world Cryos after some ancient Earth tale about a god of ice. A fitting name, Cale thought sourly, since even in its mildest season, the temperature outside could plunge to 70 degrees below freezing. Beside him, a large German shepherd stirred. Rex lifted his head, ears pricked. A low growl rumbled in his throat. "Shoo," Cale whispered, trying to soothe him. "It's just the wind. Go back to sleep." But Rex wasn't having it. His gaze was locked on the front door. A soft scratching noise cut through the storm. Scratch. Scratch. Thump. Cale froze. That wasn't the wind. He sighed, swinging his legs out of bed and shoving his feet into insulated slippers. "If it's another snow rat, you're not getting a treat tomorrow," he muttered to Rex. The dog bounded ahead, tail stiff, every muscle alert. Cale's mother wasn't home. She was working the late shift at the Lantern, the tavern she'd built when they first arrived. It was the one place where Cryos's 50-odd colonists could pretend they weren't trapped on a frozen rock at the edge of the galaxy. Cale punched in the door code. The metal slab slid open with a hiss, and the storm punched through the gap like a fist. His breath clouded instantly in the icy air. And then he saw her. A small figure was crouched against the exterior wall, arms wrapped around herself. For a moment Cale thought it was a human girl, but no. Her skin was the color of pale amethyst, faintly luminous in the snowstorm. Short white hair clung in icy strands to her delicate face. Her eyes, when they flicked up to meet his, glowed softly like twin lanterns without pupils. She looked no older than him, and she was dying in the cold. Her thin purple bodysuit was rimed with frost, her lips trembling uncontrollably. Rex, to Cale's astonishment, went straight to her side, whining and pressing against her. He began licking her hands, trying to warm her with his tongue. "Holy crap," Cale breathed, frozen in shock for half a heartbeat before instinct snapped him back. "Come inside, quick." She didn't move. Whether it was fear or the cold stealing her strength, Cale couldn't tell. He reached out, grabbed her arm, it was like touching ice through cloth, and pulled her into the prefab unit. The door sealed behind them with a hiss, cutting off the storm. The girl collapsed against the wall, teeth chattering violently. Rex curled up beside her, pressing his body heat against her fragile frame. "Mom!" Cale called out, then remembered she wasn't home. Panic threatened to rise in his chest. He ran to the closet, grabbing every thermal blanket he could find, then dug out the emergency medkit from under the sink. When he returned, the girl had slumped to the floor. He knelt beside her, draping the thickest blanket around her shoulders. Her glowing eyes lifted to his face, desperate and uncertain. "Can you understand me?" he asked softly. "Do you speak English?" She gave a weak nod. Relief washed through him. "What's your name? What happened? How did you get here?" The questions tumbled out of him before he could stop. She only shook her head and clutched the heat pack he pressed into her palms as if it were the most precious object in the universe. A single tear slid from her glowing eye, freezing instantly against her cheek. "Okay, no questions right now," Cale muttered, feeling foolish. "Let's just keep you warm." He helped her toward the couch just as the front door slid open again. Another blast of icy air whipped through, and Mira Renner, his mother, stepped inside. Her eyes widened at the sight of her son, their dog, and a trembling alien girl bundled in blankets. "Cale Elias Renner," Mira said slowly, letting the door close behind her. "You have exactly 5 seconds to explain what I'm looking at." "Mom, please," she was freezing to death out there, Cale pleaded, standing protectively in front of the girl. Mira ran a hand through her wind-tangled hair. 10 years on cryos had made her hard as the ice around them, but not heartless. She sighed, setting her work bag down. All right. But tomorrow, we're taking her to colonial administration. They need to know. At this, the alien girl's eyes widened with unmistakable terror. She shook her head violently, clutching the blanket tighter. Mom, look at her, Kale said urgently. She's terrified. Mira crouched, her expression softening as she met the girl's gaze. Hey. I'm Mira. Can you tell me your name? The girl's lips moved, but no sound came. Frustration crossed her features. Then her eyes glowed brighter, and suddenly Kale felt a strange cold seep into his mind, not physical, but like a ghost brushing across his thoughts. Images flashed inside his head. A valley settlement, alien buildings glittering under snowy peaks. A family around a table, parents, the girl, a younger sibling. Then darkness. Strange ships descending. Insectoid creatures with jagged limbs and weapons glowing sickly green. Screams. Her mother shoving her into a pod. Her father fighting, then falling. The pod ejected, spinning through the sky, struck by enemy fire, crashing near the human outpost. Crawling from the wreckage, stumbling through the snow, seeing Kale's home. The vision faded. Kale staggered, gasping. Mira was pale, one hand clamped over her mouth. My God, she whispered. Those were Vesker. They're supposed to be confined beyond the border sectors after the treaty. The girl's eyes dimmed, exhaustion written across her face. Her lips parted at last. Lyra, she whispered, her voice melodic but strained. My name is Lyra. Lyra, Kale repeated softly. I'm Kale. This is my mom, Mira. And that's Rex. You're safe here, Lyra, Mira said firmly, though her eyes were troubled. The Vesker won't find you. Lyra's expression crumpled, tears slipping down her violet cheeks. A faint ripple of emotion touched Kale's mind, gratitude, sorrow, relief. You can stay, Kale said awkwardly, patting her shoulder. Rex's tail thumped in agreement. Mira sighed. I'll set up the spare room. Kale, find her something warm to wear. He rummaged through his drawers, handing Lyra a pair of pajamas and socks. She nodded gratefully, asking with a glance where the bathroom was. He pointed. When she returned, drowning in oversized pajamas, Kale couldn't help but laugh. For a moment she looked less like an alien survivor and more like a normal kid. She tilted her head, confused, until she understood, and then, miraculously, she laughed too. The sound was like distant wind chimes, delicate and unexpected. Mira returned to find both children giggling, Rex dancing around them. Her own smile cracked through her worry. Well. That's a good sign. Come on, Lyra. Your room's ready. As Lyra slipped into bed, Rex climbed up beside her, curling into her side like a guardian. Good night, Kale said softly. Her voice, careful with the words, drifted back, good night. Thank you. Kale closed the door and looked up at his mother. Her eyes carried concern but also resignation. We're really keeping her, aren't we? He whispered. For now, Mira replied, brushing his hair aside. But Kale, this changes everything. He nodded solemnly, but his last thought before sleep was not of treaties or alien wars. It was of Lyra's smile, faint and fragile, yet human in all the ways that mattered. The lantern buzzed with life, the sound of laughter and clinking mugs filling the warm tavern air. Cryosa's storms raged outside, but in here, colonists could pretend for a few hours that they weren't huddled on a frozen world at the far edge of human reach. Last call, folks. Kale Renner's voice carried over the din. At 22, he had filled out into broad shoulders and lean muscle, the kind of man shaped by hauling crates in low gravity and repairing equipment in bitter cold. His dark hair was trimmed short on the sides, long enough on top to be stylish without being impractical. Behind the bar, Lyra moved with graceful precision, weaving between stools and tables with trays balanced easily in her hands. Her skin shimmered faintly under the tavern's amber light, the pale violet hue striking and otherworldly. Her white hair, grown long over the years, was braided neatly down her back. "You've been saying that for 10 minutes, Lyra teased, setting down drinks at a nearby table. Her accent had softened, her English perfected, but there was still a musical undertone that turned heads. "Are you actually going to throw them out, or just stand there looking scary?" The regulars chuckled. They'd grown used to the playful banter between Kale and Lyra, a rhythm honed over a decade of shared life. Kale crossed his arms with exaggerated seriousness. "I mean it this time. Mom will kill me if we stay open past midnight again." From the office doorway, Myra's voice chimed in, "Your mother is right here, and I don't need either of you to speak for me." Her expression softened as she looked at them both. "But Kale's right. Storm's coming in early. Wrap it up." That got the colonists moving. Cryo's storms were legendary, walls of ice and wind that could flay exposed skin in seconds. The patrons drained mugs, bundled into their insulated coats, and filed out, leaving the tavern echoing with sudden quiet. Kale slid the bolt across the door while Lyra stacked empty glasses. She tilted her head, eyes glowing faintly as she studied him. "You've been distracted all night," she observed. Not a question, an observation. He hesitated before replying. "Security Council meets tomorrow. Commander Harlan says they've picked up unusual activity at the edge of the system." Myra's brows furrowed. "Vesker?" "They don't know yet," Kale said, gathering plates. "Could be smugglers. Could be nothing. But it doesn't feel like nothing." Lyra's glow dimmed slightly, the color of her skin deepening with unease. A decade hadn't dulled the memory of the nightmarish insectoid creatures that had destroyed her people. The Vesker had retreated after that massacre, or so the report said. But Lyra never truly believed they were gone. "They'll want you there," Mira said firmly. "And Lyra too. Her abilities could prove useful again." Lyra looked down at her hands, flexing them as though she could still feel the echoes of telepathic visions. Over the years, she had gained more control, honing her gift into something precise and powerful. What once overwhelmed her now could be focused, a rare and valuable tool for the colony. "Go home, you two," Mira said, breaking the silence. "I'll finish here. Take Rex with you." The old dog appeared from the back room, graying muzzle lifted eagerly at his name. Despite the years, his eyes still lit up whenever Lyra entered a room. He'd been her guardian since that first freezing night, and nothing, not time, not age, had shaken his devotion. Outside, the storm had begun to bite. Shards of ice rode the wind like thrown knives. Kale tugged his hood tighter. Lyra did the same, her braid whipping behind her as she looked toward their home just a few minutes' walk away. "Race you," she called suddenly, her voice carrying in the gale. Rex barked excitedly as she bolted into the snow. Kale laughed and chased after her, their boots crunching on frozen ground. It was a ritual that hadn't changed since childhood, spontaneous races through Cryos's brutal nightscape, proving to themselves that even in this unforgiving place, joy could be found. He caught up with her just as they reached their door, both of them breathless and dusted with ice. Snow clung to Lyra's lashes, making them glitter like crystal. "You cheated," Kale accused between laughs. "You're just slow," she shot back, eyes glowing brighter with amusement. For a moment, their laughter died into something heavier. The air between them shifted, their closeness charged. Kale found himself watching the way her breath fogged in the cold, the way her violet skin reflected the panel lights. Lyra's eyes searched his face, as if she too felt something changing. Rex broke the tension, pushing insistently at the door with his nose. They stumbled inside, warmth enveloping them. Both shed coats and gloves in silence, the moment outside still lingering. "Tea?" Cale asked, moving toward the small kitchen. "Yes, please." Lyra's voice was soft, her tone unreadable. He set the kettle, trying to ignore the way he could feel her presence close behind him. When he turned, mugs in hand, she was right there. Her luminous eyes locked onto his with startling intensity. "Cale," she began. He grinned, trying to deflect. "Dangerous word, that. Their old joke." But Lyra didn't smile. "We've grown up together. Shared everything. Almost everything." His chest tightened. "Almost." She took a step closer, so near that the faint scent of ozone and something sweet reached him. "My people believe that surviving death grants you a second life. A gift. It should not be wasted." "What do you want?" he asked, voice rough. "You," she whispered simply, reaching up to touch his jaw with fingers cool and delicate. "I've wanted you for years." The truth struck him like a blow, though some part of him had always known. His laughter, his deflections, his discipline, they had all been shields. "I want you too," he admitted, words escaping before fear could choke them. "I just didn't know if we." Lyra's soft laugh cut him off, like wind chimes in the storm. "Do you think I haven't studied human biology? We're compatible enough." The bluntness startled him into a chuckle, tension breaking. He brushed a strand of white hair from her face, marveling at how right it felt to finally touch her. "And when did you start researching that?" "For years," she confessed, leaning into his hand. "Because I wanted to be certain before I did this." She rose on her toes, pressing her lips against his. The kiss was tentative at first, exploratory, but it deepened quickly, built on years of unspoken longing. Her lips were cooler than a human's, but soft, urgent. Cale's arms encircled her waist, pulling her close. Her hands traced his shoulders, igniting warmth wherever she touched. When they finally broke apart, their foreheads rested together, breaths mingling. "Are you sure?" he whispered. Her eyes glowed brilliantly, casting faint violet light on her cheeks. "I've never been more sure of anything." Cale kissed her again, surrendering to what had always been waiting between them. Outside, the storm battered the walls of their shelter, but inside they had found a warmth no winter could extinguish. Rex, sensing the shift, padded quietly to his bed in the corner, curling up with a sigh as though he had been waiting for this moment all along. The colony's central hall thrummed with tension. Leaders from every sector filled the circular chamber, their faces drawn tight with worry. Cale sat rigid beside Lyra, his uniform stiff and unfamiliar compared to the work clothes he usually wore. Across the table, Myra's eyes flicked between them, knowing far more than her son realized. At the head of the chamber, Governor Elira Vaughn gestured for quiet. "Commander Harlan, your report." The scarred officer rose, activating the holographic projector. A map of the cryo system flickered to life, red markers pulsing ominously along the asteroid belt. At 0200 hours, our long-range sensors detected multiple vessels entering the system. Their configuration and energy signatures are consistent with Vesker scout ships. We count at least 5, possibly more cloaked. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Cale felt Lyra stiffen beside him, her hand seeking his under the table. "Are we certain?" Dr. Sato, the medical chief, asked. "Could they be traders, explorers?" "They're running silent," Harlan interrupted. No response to hails. "And those signatures are unmistakable." "Then it's begun," Mira whispered grimly. Governor Vaughn turned her sharp gaze toward Lyra. "Consultant, your expertise on Vesker behavior is unique. What do you make of this?" Lyra rose slowly. Though her voice was calm, Cale could feel the storm inside her through the bond they'd grown accustomed to sharing. "Commander Harlan is correct. This is classic Vesker reconnaissance. They study their prey before attacking. Based on past patterns, Her glowing eyes swept the room. We have 3 to 5 days before they strike. Silence fell. The weight of her words pressed on everyone present. Then we must act, Harlan barked. Evacuation of non-essential personnel. The colony ship in orbit can carry 60% of the population. Leaving 40% behind? Mira snapped. Unacceptable. It's reality, Harlan shot back. Children, medical cases, and critical knowledge carriers must be prioritized. The rest will have to hold the line. Kale pushed forward in his chair. What about defenses? The shield hasn't been tested against a concentrated Vesker fleet. It's our best chance, Harlan admitted. That and the ion cannons. But if they bring a full swarm? He trailed off. Lyra's voice cut through the silence. There may be another way. All eyes turned toward her. She hesitated, then pressed on. Before my people were destroyed, my father worked on a countermeasure designed to neutralize Vesker technology. It was incomplete when the settlement fell. But I know where the research was stored. A heavy silence. Kale's pulse quickened. You never told me that, he murmured. Because it was theory, Lyra said, shame flickering in her expression. And the facility lies deep in the shattered plains. Reaching it now, in storm season, it would be suicide. Governor Vaughn studied her, then Kale. And yet, it may be our only chance. Lieutenant Renner, Consultant Lyra, you will assemble a small team. Retrieve this research. If it can be completed, it could turn the tide. Harlan scowled but didn't argue. The decision had been made. Myra's voice wavered as she looked between her son and Lyra. You'd send them into that death trap? We'd send them to save the colony, Vaughn replied. The meeting ended in heavy silence. As the chamber emptied, Mira pulled Kale and Lyra aside. I don't like this. But I understand. Her eyes softened. And I'm glad you two finally stopped dancing around each other. Took you long enough. Kale flushed scarlet. Mom. Don't mom me. I've had eyes for 20 years. She pulled them both into a fierce embrace. Just promise you'll come back. Lyra's hand tightened on Myra's shoulder. We will, she whispered. Though all three of them knew it was a promise no one could guarantee. The TV-7 Mammoth transport rumbled in the equipment bay, its 6 wheels taller than a man, built to crush Cryos' hostile terrain. Kale secured crates in the cargo hold while their teammates prepared. Captain Rourke Dean, a grizzled veteran who had driven in worse hellscapes. Dr. Elara Morgan, the xenobiologist whose sharp eyes might unravel alien data. Sergeant Nico Torres, their weapons specialist, broad-shouldered and restless. 5 souls against impossible odds. Torres checked the weather projections with a grim look. We've got 72 hours before the next storm front makes crossing impossible. After that, nobody's getting through. Which means we beat the storm, Rourke muttered, running a diagnostic on the Mammoth. Lyra appeared from the gear lockers, dressed in insulated expedition armor. The pale violet of her skin looked deeper, a shade Kale had learned meant stress. Still, her eyes found his, steady and unyielding. Ready? He asked softly. As I'll ever be. Mira arrived with Rex trotting at her side, the dog's muzzle silvered by age but his spirit still sharp. Rex yanked forward the moment he saw Lyra, tail thumping wildly. He insisted on saying goodbye, Mira said with a tight smile. Lyra knelt, wrapping her arms around the faithful animal. Watch over Mira, old friend, she whispered. Rex whined softly, licking her cheek. Mira pulled Kale into a crushing embrace, then Lyra. Come back to me. Both of you. We will, Kale promised, though his heart clenched at the lie. The Mammoth roared to life, its headlights slicing through the endless gray. The colony dome shrank behind them, swallowed by distance and storm. At first the land was familiar, rolling fields of ice, frozen lakes glittering under clouded skies. But hours later, the world transformed. The shattered plains rose before them, jagged ice spires twisting at impossible angles, deep fissures glowing with eerie inner light. The land itself seemed broken, a scar of tectonic fury. My people called this place Koravesh, Lyra said quietly, gazing out with haunted eyes. The broken land. Fitting name, Torres muttered. Rourke slowed the mammoth to a crawl. The vehicle groaned as it navigated knife-edged ridges and gaping chasms. The suspension strained but held. Navigation's useless, Rourke reported. Magnetic interference is scrambling the system. I can guide us, Lyra said. My people learned the plains by sight, by memory. Hours passed as she directed them from one jagged landmark to the next. Outside, the storm built steadily, sleet rattling like bullets against reinforced glass. Inside, exhaustion spread like a shadow. By the time they stopped for rest, they'd crossed only a fraction of the distance. Everyone's faces were drawn, weary. If the weather holds, we'll reach the facility by tomorrow night, Lyra said, tracing their path on the map. If, Torres muttered darkly, glancing at the black sky. They ate ration bars in the cramped interior. Kale lay awake in the narrow bunk he shared with Lyra, listening to her slow breathing. But he knew she wasn't asleep. What are you thinking about? He whispered. The last time I crossed these plains, she murmured. I was a child. My father carried me most of the way. Her voice caught. Kale tightened his arm around her. You never talk about them. It hurts less that way. But here, the memories come back. My father, a scientist. He helped design the countermeasure. My mother, a diplomat. They believed in unity, in survival together. They sound remarkable, Kale said softly. They would have liked you, she whispered, glowing eyes shimmering in the dark. I wish I could have met them. They would have admired humans. Your stubbornness. Your courage. My people were cautious. Perhaps too cautious. Different strengths, Kale murmured. That's why we're stronger together. Lyra touched his cheek, her violet skin luminous in faint light. That's what my father believed too. The countermeasure wasn't just for us. It was meant to protect all life. Kale kissed her then, not with urgency but with quiet promise. We'll finish what he started. Outside, the storm wailed, but in that fragile moment, hope took root. The research facility emerged from the storm like a dream carved in ice. Sweeping arches of translucent crystal blended seamlessly into the landscape, glowing faintly as though the structure itself was alive. Dr. Alara Morgan pressed a hand to the glass-like wall in awe. I've never seen architecture like this. It looks, grown, not built. Lyra's violet glow brightened as she approached the sealed entrance. My father worked here. Her voice was reverent, almost trembling. This place remembers my people. She laid her palm on the frozen control panel. For a moment, nothing. Then soft blue light blossomed beneath her hand, and the massive doors slid open without a sound. Torres gave a low whistle. Genetic recognition. That's one way to keep intruders out. They entered cautiously, weapons raised, though Lyra insisted no one would be waiting inside. The corridors curved gently downward, the walls emitting a soft luminescence. The lab at the heart of the facility opened before them in a circular chamber. Holographic displays flared to life as Lyra touched the console. Alien symbols and equations spiraled into the air. It's here, she whispered, eyes scanning the flood of data. The countermeasure. Her glow dimmed. But it's incomplete. The final integration protocols, they were never finished. Can you finish them? Kale asked. I'm not my father, Lyra admitted, brows furrowed. But, something about being here, she closed her eyes. It's like I can hear him. As if his voice lingers in the walls. Dr. Morgan joined her, interpreting schematics through a scientist's lens. Kale stood beside Lyra, grounding her as her hands flew over the alien interface with growing certainty. Suddenly, new images burst across the holograms, historic records. Battles between her people and the Vesker stretching back centuries. Footage of swarms repelled by brilliant bursts of energy. "My people fought them before," Lyra said, voice trembling. "We weren't just victims. We were guardians." Her glow intensified, pulsing patterns beneath her skin like living starlight. Before anyone could respond, their comms crackled to life. "Lieutenant Renner, do you copy?" Commander Harlan's voice, jagged through static. "We copy," Kale answered. "The Vesker have moved. They're attacking now. Shields are failing. We need that countermeasure yesterday." Lyra's hands flew faster. "Just a little longer." Hours blurred into frantic work. Rourke prepared the mammoth for departure. Torres stood guard, eyes scanning every shadow. Morgan and Lyra pieced together fragments of science with desperation. Finally, Lyra sagged back from the console. "It's done. The countermeasure is complete." She transferred the data to a portable core, clutching it like a lifeline. Then she hesitated, fingers dancing once more across the interface. "What are you doing?" Kale asked. "Sending a beacon," she said softly. "If any of my people survived, they'll know the Vesker are back. And that we have a way to fight." The return journey was chaos. The storm raged with renewed fury, jagged ice collapsing around them. Twice they nearly lost the mammoth to hidden chasms, saved only by Lyra's uncanny instincts, her connection to the plains now sharper than ever. When they broke free of the jagged terrain, the sky above the colony burned with battle. Vesker ships rained green fire onto the failing dome. "We'll never make it through that," Torres muttered. Lyra's hand found Kale's arm, glowing brighter than ever. "The mammoth's power core, I can modify it to emit a pulse using the countermeasure principles. It won't stop them, but it will disrupt their weapons. Long enough to reach the colony." Morgan and Lyra tore into the engine housing, wires sparking under their hands. When the modifications were ready, Kale gripped Lyra's hand. "Do it." She triggered the device. A wave of violet-blue energy erupted, sweeping outward. Vesker weapons faltered, their beams sputtering into silence. "Now!" Kale shouted. Rourke gunned the engine, and the mammoth roared through the gap, racing toward the colony gates. They made it inside as the shield shuddered and cracked under renewed fire. The colony was chaos. Civilians herded into shelters. Security forces clashing with Vesker ground troops that had breached the perimeter. Rex barked furiously, pulling at his leash where Mira struggled to maintain order. Kale and Lyra rushed to the command center, slamming the core onto the console. "This is it," Lyra said breathlessly. "Reconfigure the shields to emit this frequency. It will disrupt their neural networks." "Can we do it in time?" Harlan demanded. "We have to," Kale snapped. Engineers scrambled. The shields flickered, shifting. Outside, Vesker troops pushed closer, their shrieks audible even through reinforced walls. "We're ready," Lyra said, her hands hovering over the activation controls. "Do it," Harlan ordered. The pulse swept outward. Vesker ships faltered, their formations collapsing. On the ground, insectoid warriors convulsed, their limbs twitching uncontrollably as their neural links unraveled. One by one, their weapons fell silent. Cheers erupted in the control center, until alarms blared. "The grid's overloading," a technician cried. "We can't sustain this output." "I can stabilize it," Lyra said suddenly. Kale turned, fear slicing through him. "No, you'll burn yourself out." "Trust me," she whispered. Her glow surged as she pressed both hands to the console. Energy arced from her body into the systems, harmonizing with the failing grid. Her patterns pulsed brighter, steadying the feedback. Outside, the Vesker retreated, their forces crumbling. But Lyra's body shook under the strain, her glow threatening to consume her. "Lyra!" Kale shouted, grabbing her shoulders. Before he could pull her away, the sky split. Sleek vessels with flowing designs swept down, blasting the remaining Vesker ships from the sky. Lyra gasped, tears streaming. "My people!" They heard the call. The Luminari, her scattered kin, had returned. With their aid, the Vesker were annihilated or driven into retreat. The colony survived. Days later, Cryos was transformed. Humans and Luminari shared the halls of the colony, exchanging knowledge and rebuilding together. The research facility became a joint outpost, a beacon against future Vesker threats. Kale and Lyra stood on the observation deck one rare clear night, the aurora rippling above. Below, Rex dozed by Myra's feet in the newly expanded lantern, a legend in his own right, the dog who had once saved a freezing girl and, unknowingly, 2 civilizations. "Do you ever regret it?" Kale asked quietly, arm around Lyra's waist. "Finding me before you found your people?" Lyra smiled, her skin glowing softly. "Never. If Rex hadn't licked my face that night, if you hadn't opened your door, everything would be different. The Vesker might have won." Kale chuckled. "Humanity and Luminari. Not the catchiest motto." Her laugh chimed like wind over glass. She kissed him beneath the lights, sealing not just their bond but the fragile unity of 2 species. On Cryos, in the harshest of worlds, they had built something new. Not just survival, family, love, and the promise of a future shared. So that's how Kale and Lyra's story unfolded, from a single act of kindness on a frozen night to a war that reshaped their entire world. What started as a boy, his dog, and a lost girl became the seed of an alliance that spanned species, the foundation of a future where unity was the strongest weapon of all. The lessons linger, don't they? That sometimes survival begins not with weapons or orders, but with compassion. That opening a door can change the fate of 2 civilizations. And that even in the most hostile places, love and trust can thaw the coldest nights. Kale and Lyra's journey shows us that the boundaries between people, or between species, are never as rigid as we think. Courage, laughter, loyalty, and hope, those are the forces that defeat monsters, not just the ones on battlefields, but the ones that live in fear and division. And now, as the Luminari and humans of Cryos walk forward together, they remind us of what's possible when we stop seeing differences as weaknesses and start seeing them as strengths. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget, hit subscribe so you never miss the next tale, drop a like to support the channel, and share this video with a friend who loves epic sci-fi adventures. Together, we'll keep building worlds, one story at a time.